Welcome to MVP, our new podcast for anyone that loves to learn new things. I'm Kate.
And I'm Jack, and we both work at an online school, MVA.
Like most educators, we are passionate about sharing knowledge.
And love the sound of our own voices.
Each week, we'll invite a special guest to join us for fun and engaging discussions on a wide range of topics, from careers advice to social issues.
So sit back, relax, and let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode. How are you, Jack?
I'm good. I got a bit of flack on a previous episode for starting, instead of saying hello, starting with, I feel welcome. And my girlfriend said that was a very weird thing to have started the podcast with. So now I'm really self-conscious about how I start these.
I mean, it's not as bad as the amount of edits I have to do if ever I try and make you start or introduce something.
Yeah. There's sometimes I just sit quietly in the background because if I say anything, it will ruin it and we'll have to chop things out. So, yeah.
Now, this week we are doing something a little bit different. So rather than everything we know about, we are doing some suggestions based off of things that we don't know and we wish we knew. So it's a little bit of a silly episode, I think, but I've collated a number of questions for things that I don't know and other people don't know, and we want to find out. And we are asking clever Jack, and he's giving us some answers to these questions. So it will be a slightly different format to what we're used to, but we're hoping that our giant audience will forgive us for the change of plans.
And if it's rubbish, we won't do it again. If it's brilliant, we'll do it again. Not every week, but it might be sort of a reoccurring thing. So if you kind of like this format, do let us know.
Yes, exactly. We're still in our testing phase, aren't we, Jack? So, we're trying out lots of different ways in which we can structure these episodes, different ways in which we can be engaging and make sure we're not sending everyone to sleep. I never want to be that podcast that everyone puts on when they're trying to fall asleep, because I definitely have a few podcasts and audiobooks that if I just need some soothing tones, I just need someone talking to me, but I don't actually care to listen. And we can't be that.
No, maybe every 5 minutes, or just absolutely scream down the mic, or just say really loud, horrible things, so that people just can't relax listening to this at all. Yeah. Have you ever gone to sleep to a podcast and woken up in the morning and a podcast has still been playing? You've just continually gone. I have that happen to me all the time.
I'm very good with sleep timers, but I have had the podcasts seep into my dreams and also listened to podcasts that are terrifying. The Case File podcast about true crime. I don't know why I've put that on before, and then suddenly I'm having a nightmare where someone's climbing in through the window to rape and murder me.
Yeah, shock.
Yeah. Manifesting absolute rubbish. So we're going to get started. First question, Jack. Why doesn't glue stick to the bottle?
I like this question because I think it sets the tone for the perfect science question that actually even myself as a teacher of science could guess at the answer, but didn't really know before I investigated it a little bit further. And it's one of those things that everyone's sort of afraid to ask about, I suppose. Mm-hmm. So I suppose we should start with, how does glue work in general? Because that's a mystery to most people. In that if I have PVA glue and I'm spreading it over a surface, we know it's getting on all the cracks. We know it's kind of between two surfaces, but how does it then actually stick them together? Well, it's to do with forces, in what we call intermolecular forces. So Let's break that down. We've got intermolecular molecules are groupings of atoms, we could call them. That would be a molecule. So intermolecular would be bonds that are forming, or forces that are forming between atoms, really. And obviously everything's made up of atoms, so everything can have these forces. And actually anything that is held together ever has forces, has intermolecular forces.
Are these forces like your bog standard gravitational, magnetic?
They're similar to those, I suppose. Yeah, so quite a lot of forces have similarities with a magnetic force, which is between maybe a positively charged area and a negatively charged area. And of course, opposites attract. They're being held together in that way. But yeah, there's lots of different types of forces. And I suppose the stronger the force is, the more strong that item is. So a diamond, for example, has a lot of these strong bonds, a lot of these strong intermolecular forces holding it together. But something like gold, which pure gold is a little bit softer, athletes will bite into gold medals and try and sink their teeth into it, because if it is pure gold, you should be able to sink your teeth into it because it's quite a soft metal. Yeah, so that's where that comes from, and the Olympians all do it. The medals now aren't made of pure gold, but the sort of tradition, the tradition still stays.
So this is, I'm going to really impress you here with my chemistry knowledge. So this is where we've got like electrons being negatively charged, being attracted to protons that are positively charged.
Yes, yeah, in some cases. So the center of an atom will contain things called protons, the positively charged part of the atom. Electrons whiz around the outside, and there is attraction between those two things. So a lot of intermolecular forces are based on those two positive and negative charges interacting not just within an atom itself, but within multiple atoms as well, keeping everything together. So glue has something similar to that. We're spreading it across the surface. We have these bonds, but the problem with glue initially when you spread it is actually it is quite easy, although it might be slightly sticky, it's quite easy to then separate the two objects you've just glued together. So what needs to happen is this liquid glue needs to be solidified, and that's done by the water that's within it evaporating, and by creating a solid. The atoms are arranged in such a way where they don't have as much space to move into, and so because it's all a lot more rigid, these forces are held in place and aren't kind of, I suppose, slipped would be the word, or slid over each other and broken. So does it
sort of set almost?
It does, yeah. So that's when the glue is setting. These forces are still there, but because the molecules are solid, they're being held in place more strongly. And that's how a general type of glue would work. So in terms of why it then doesn't stick to the bottle, well, too dry, it needs to be exposed to air, where the water can evaporate. It can then escape that area, but because it's within this bottle, because it's contained within this bottle, the air in the bottle contains a lot of water already. It's not got it. There's nowhere for it to go. It's trapped. So the glue in the bottle doesn't sort of lose its liquid state. It remains in that liquid state. It doesn't dry as such. So why doesn't glue stick to the bottle? Because it can't dry is the short answer, but the long answer is everything we've just said there.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's not the most thrilling or exciting area of science, glue not sticking to a bottle, but hopefully with some of the next few questions, we'll ramp up the excitement level there.
I'm enjoying science 101. This is good.
Yeah, but who knew? Glue's way more technical than you thought it would be. They've had glue. I was in the research for this, saw that they had glue for 200,000 years. Early man was gluing things to a wall in a very, very simple way, using things like honey, for example, or tree sap as a glue. But actually, the science behind it is something we've only really learned fully about in the last 150 years or so.
Wow. So next question. How do birds fly?
Yeah, again, a good question. Something that everyone should know. We learn about birds, we learn about wings of birds quite early on, but then we don't actually really talk about why.
I feel like I know buzzwords like aerodynamics, but I don't know what aerodynamics means. Wingspan. It's things where we've definitely heard about it, but it doesn't make a huge... same question, of course, also for me would be like plane as well. Yeah. But we'll stick with birds. But
well, go on, we can actually link it with planes, because we'll start off. There's four forces in action here: lift, gravity, thrust, and drag. So if we start with thrust and drag, as well as sounding like a headline act at a cabaret as well, thrust and drag are what are moving the plane forwards, or the bird forwards, but also holding them back. So they oppose each other in the forwards and backwards direction. the more to do with flight here. Lift and gravity, the other pairing, they're more of a, I suppose, a tag team in WrestleMania or something. Lift and gravity, they equally oppose each other. Lift going up, gravity pulling things down. Again, gravity is the force we have on Earth, we have on huge planets, we have on the sun, that pulls things to the center of those objects and wants to pull birds down from the sky, planes down from the sky, all sorts of things like that. Lift, pushing against that, is kind of an effect of the direction that the wind is moving or the air is moving underneath the plane's wings and the bird's wings. So we think of a plane, first of all, it's easier to imagine with a plane. The wing acts as a bit of an air deflector. So it pushes the air down and underneath the wing. Now, because it's pushing air down, Newton's third law of science says that if there's a force being expelled one way, there's an equal and opposite force going the other way. So if a plane can push air down, the air can push the plane up. And that's what's happening with lift and gravity. Gravity is trying to pull the plane down, but the lift that's being generated by this air being pushed down is holding it in the sky. Now, a bird's a little bit different to that because the wings themselves flap. That doesn't happen on a plane. You could design a plane that does that, but it would be counterintuitive. It wouldn't really work as well. So if we've got a bird flapping its wings, the wings are doing two jobs. They're being the air deflector again, but they're also being the propeller to push it forwards. So actually we're pairing two of those initial forces together, thrust to take it forwards and lift to lift it up at the same time, coming through these air deflecting wings as
Jack, this is an unauthorized question now. But if it's that simple, why don't we? I'm really going to sound so stupid now. I'm going to sound like bloody Icarus. But why haven't we, as man, like super intelligent? We've got incredible things going on. Why haven't we figured out like wings that we can attach to ourselves?
Yeah, I suppose we could. So if we had wings that were
happening,
long enough, well, it would be very heavy if you think about it, because the size of the wings we'd need, I've not got the arm strength to lift those. Some people will.
Speak for yourself, Jack.
But yeah, absolutely. So in doing that, it's very inefficient. And actually, if we were just the better way to do it would perhaps to be create like a mini helicopter, like a backpack mini helicopter type thing. That would be more efficient. It wouldn't be as exhausting as us flapping around, or as dangerous, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, theoretically, it could be done. I suppose we have like paragliding.
Yeah, I was just thinking, and also jetpacks. But that's probably
there's water-based ones. Yeah. But yeah, it is as simple as that. It's deflecting air downwards, which will equal an opposite reaction, push you or the bird or the plane or whatever object it is that wants to fly upwards as well. And if you can control that, like you can in a plane, or a bird can naturally control it, you're flying.
And so as long as you're getting these forces in balance, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, birds are so much lighter than us, but technically you could have giant dinosaurs that are doing the same sort of thing because they've got the strength to be able to flap.
Yeah, they've got the flap strength. That's the scientific term there.
Us.
Yeah. But yeah, birds have the advantage of having sort of hollow bones as well, so they're a lot lighter than we are. Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't know that.
So yeah, I suppose that also goes into the answer as to why they can fly as well. Yeah, if we did it, we are fairly heavy animals. Mammals themselves are fairly heavy animals. Bats being an example of a mammal that can fly, but they're again much smaller than we are. I think. I don't want to throw it out there just in case they don't, but I think they've got more hollow or less dense bones certainly than other mammals.
I thought you were saying I think to the bit about them being much smaller than us, and I was I'm pretty sure I'm bigger than a bat.
I've seen Batman. I know that bat's bigger than me.
I think they're smaller than us, but there are the odd ones out there. There's always exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
So next question, Jack. What is lightning? Because this is something that I think lots of people, again, I feel like you will have learned about it in maybe primary school, but then it still feels like a magnificent thunderbolt being struck down from Zeus
Yeah,
in
it does
anger.
seem magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone, the short answer, I suppose, that everyone knows is it's electricity of some form. But the question then is, how's electricity just coming from a cloud? Surely water and electricity don't mix. That's everything we're taught up until the age of 10. Don't
Yeah.
put the electrical appliance in the bath type thing. But it's actually closer to something we're all fairly familiar with in static electricity. So when we are wearing particularly fluffy socks on a particularly fluffy carpet and there's a lot of friction that's caused, we might be able to pass an electric shock on someone else. Or if we rub a balloon against our hair and then hold that balloon next to our hair is standing up because of static electricity. So
Yes, my husband has really terrible like material golf tops that he
yeah.
seems to wear all day, every day, and every evening when he's taking them off, it's like, and I'm just like, this is absolutely outrageous. These need to be burnt.
Well, that's exactly what happens in lightning, or when lightning is formed. It's friction that's causing static electricity. So it'll be the material of the golf top that is causing really electrons, to go back to that term we used earlier, to rub off onto one of the objects more than the other, or from the other, leaving you with two different charges, a positive charge and a negative charge. So that happens in clouds. It's normally when cold air will meet warm air. So that's why where in areas you have a lot of warm air, like on the equator, chances are you're going to get more thunderstorms there as well. And it's why in places like the UK and Europe, a lot of our thunderstorms happen in the summer as well. It's very, very rare for them to happen in the winter because the air is just cold everywhere. But warm air meeting cold air. Yeah.
That never even registered, because in my head, I'm like, well, of course they'd be in winter because that's when we get the most of our rain. But rain and a thunderstorm is a completely different thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got warm air meeting cold air, and the warm air kind of gets pushed upwards. The cold air sinks below. And because the cold air is cold, instead of having water droplets within these clouds, we've got ice crystals as well. And so it's the ice crystals themselves kind of rubbing against the water droplets in the warmer cloud as well, and bumping together, making this static electricity and building up this static electricity. And it technically really creates a giant battery, is a good way to think of it. So on a battery, at one end, you've got a positive, and at the other end, you've got a negative. That's what's being created in the sky. So we've got the higher clouds, these warmer clouds, being the plus end, the lower clouds being the minus end, because they've got more electrons, more of this electrical charge within them. Now, that electrical charge...
Is this being harnessed for energy, like a renewable energy source?
Good suggestion. The problem is it's difficult to predict when and where it's going to happen, and it's quite rare. But if we could harness a single lightning bolt, it does have an insane amount of energy in. So it could be enough to power a town. I don't know for how many days off the top of my head, but for 4 days with that, because there's a lot of electricity flowing through it at a very short space of time.
I was told as a child that if I was out in thunder and lightning, sorry, I'm now just telling you all of my thoughts and concerns, not to go and stand under a tree.
Yeah.
Is that an old wives' tale, or is that true?
No, that is correct. And that actually brings us nicely on to when this electricity builds up to be enough, when the battery is full, if you want to use that analogy, the electricity needs to go somewhere. There's no more, not quite room, but sort of room. It needs to go somewhere. And so it looks to find something that is oppositely charged, which the earth, the trees, we are in that case. So we are conductors of electricity. Anything that's a conductor of electricity, it can run down that. And so it's looking for the shortest path to that, or to the ground, basically. And so by standing next to a tree, that's a big lightning rod, if you like. That's a big extension of the earth upwards and outwards that it's going to jump to if that's the tallest thing nearby. Now, if you're in a town or a city or a village, you're pretty safe, because the chances are there's going to be buildings taller than you. Quite a lot of tall buildings will have metal spikes on the top of them that then run down the side of the building, like churches do, run down the side of the building, so that if electricity hits them, it goes through that metal spike and down into the earth, rather than straight into the building, possibly electrifying areas of it or causing damage of some sort.
Wow.
But yeah, it's trying to make its way down to earth in the shortest way possible, as well. So yeah, if you take one thing from this podcast, it's don't stand near something tall if you're in the middle of a lightning storm.
Well, from something quite sensible to something quite absurd, another potentially old wives' tale that I want answering.
Yeah.
If you sneeze with your eyes open, do they pop out?
Yeah. So this is a popular one.
I think. Do.
No, they definitely don't.
Oh, right. I was like, wow.
But yeah, as in that's a question. I could have actually run with that, and I probably should have run with that for a bit longer. But no, it's something that everyone hears about when they're a kid. It makes fairly logical sense, because when we sneeze, we automatically close our eyes. There's a lot of force going out from our face during a sneeze as well. So our eyes, which are these jelly-like substances that could fit through, presumably what we think could fit through our eye holes. That's not the scientific word for them. Eye gaps. What's the word I'm looking for? Eye holes. It is eye holes, isn't it? Yeah, it just sounds wrong. But they can fit through that. It seems like they should be forced out. But actually, the fact that we can move our eyes around proves that we have things holding them in place. So when I look left, when I look right, when I look up, down, whatever, the muscles in or to the sides of my eyes are doing the movement there. And it's actually those muscles that are, one, attached to our eyes to help move them, but also then attached to the rest of our face, in terms of blood vessels, in terms of tendons joined certain places as well. So there is a connection there.
There's a couple of seatbelts there.
Yeah. And at the back of our eye, as an emergency, we have the optic nerve, which actually goes right up to our brain. So that's where any information that's coming through our eyes travels up that optic nerve to our brain. So there's a lot of security within them.
Jack, I don't want to bring up something probably distressing for you, but you told me once that your rabbit's eyeball fell out.
Yeah. I don't know if it sneezed. I wasn't there when that happened, but
how did that happen? If there's all these optic, you probably don't know the answer if you're like 10 and just crying about it.
So the caveat with this story as well, before someone emails in no, that's impossible for a rabbit's eyes. Well, I was quite young, so I may over the years have embellished this, but this is exactly how I remember it to this point. In that one day, my rabbit's eye was just sort of hanging out of its face. So again, it could have sneezed, winking maybe, if this was true, which it isn't. The rabbit is true. The sneezing, eyes popping out is not true. But yeah, it fell out. It was still connected. So I kind of like to think that it could see its own face, which is an opportunity that most people don't get, or certainly a rabbit doesn't really get, to see it other than reflected in or in a photo, I suppose. But gross. We then took it to the vet, obviously, to take care of the rabbit, and got its eye sealed shut at that point. I think they kind of gave. I thought they'd try and put it back in, but they
pop it in.
They didn't bother. I suppose maybe the muscles must have been severed at that point that were holding it in place. So there's no point.
Oh gosh, sorry. I wish I'd never asked.
No.
Horrible. So the next question. Don't worry, Jack, we are halfway through, so you can relax in a bit. This is one that I am interested about. What is a dream? Are you a dreamer?
I'm not. Well, in lockdown, I was a huge dreamer, which actually fits into the what is a dream explanation.
I dream constantly.
Yeah.
Really vividly, all of the time. Always have. I can still remember like dreams from a really young age, and I almost get sort of deja vu with them. But I dream, I would say, every single night. And then Matthew, my husband, if he has a dream, it's once a year.
Yeah.
It's like just never happens.
Yeah. I'm like him. I hardly ever dream. Or if I do, I'll remember it for about 2 seconds and then not remember it. So I think I must dream, but I just don't remember it
Does
when I
that
wake up.
mean that dreamers are, on the whole, better people? Because that's what I've been going with. Better,
What?
creative,
Yeah,
intelligent. That's always been my party line.
yeah. Well, what a dream actually is, or why we think we dream. Again, we don't actually 100% know a lot about dreams because they're very, very difficult things to scientifically analyze and scientifically test. But the leading theory is that it helps us consolidate and analyze memories. And they could be memories of certain skills or certain habits that we do. So we're repeating those things. And it almost acts as a bit of a rehearsal for various situations that our
Yeah.
body or our brain thinks that we might encounter again. So that's why we often sort of dream about school, dream about work, and all of those sorts of things that we do regularly.
Yeah.
As well, just because it's our body preparing for the future of those things and potentially any dangers that could come up, which is where nightmares come into it. So when we're having a nightmare, it's our body kind of preparing us for if that situation was to happen in real life. It's giving us a bit of a dummy run or a practice run at it, which I think is quite cool as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dreams in lockdown were always very, very mundane. And the thought behind that is if you have a day where you're not fulfilled, you're more likely to dream on that day compared to not. So maybe you've just got a lot of unfulfilled days, like
I'm
you're
basically
just not
living
doing enough.
boring life, and
Yeah.
therefore I can't wait to go to sleep to spice things up a bit.
Yeah, you need to stimulate your brain more in the
I
day
know.
because your brain's just got full of energy when you go to sleep, perhaps. But yeah, that's the leading theory. And then the kind of reason why that's helping us to survive, the reason why that's been something that's been passed through evolutionary generation after generation after generation is, as humans, it helps us better understand our emotions as well.
Okay.
Because in a dream, if we are trying to express how we feel about something, even if that is fear in a nightmare, it's then again a rehearsal for expressing that in the real life, and so it helps us
That makes
socially.
sense.
So
My
as
husband
social
is,
animals,
emotionally inept, so that makes a lot of sense.
the follow-up question with this is, do other animals dream? Which is something that we can't really.
I'm sure
tell
my
much about.
dog, like I'm always seeing
Yeah.
her sort of like kind of having some sort of chase or something going on.
Yeah, which actually makes you as good as the scientists who are studying this, because there's a couple of ways in which they're trying to find out whether other animals do dream. And one is just observing them and seeing what they do in their sleep. And if they're running in their sleep, obviously something's going on there. And the other one is to look at the stages of sleep they're in, and if they reach the stage of sleep where humans tend to dream. And a lot of mammals do, a lot of other animals don't. So we think that mammals
Which stage is that? Is that REM?
It is. It's REM. Yeah.
What does that mean?
I was hoping you would not ask that because
I'm so
I'm
sorry.
not.
Scratch this from the record.
I'm not 100%.
I'll
sure.
move on to the next question, Jack, and save you the embarrassment.
What I do know is that it's a very deep part of the sleep as well. So it's not, you wouldn't start dreaming straight away when you fall asleep, even though it might feel like that. But it's really your brain has shut down in those areas, not quite fully shut down, but shut down from thought and thinking. And as you reach this REM stage, that's when you'd start dreaming and possibly even remembering those dreams as well. So your brain's working harder than you'd think at night as well.
Good. Talking of the brain, next question. We're on 6 of 8, so we're getting through them. Don't switch off, guys, if you are listening. We're nearly done. Number 6 is, what is brain freeze?
Yeah. Again, another question.
Yeah, this is a good one because I hate brain freeze. I hate it with such a burning passion, just like the burning I feel in my head if I have ice cream.
Yeah. Well, you've got some good news. There's a way to alleviate it fairly quickly because it's all to do with the top of your mouth. So when you're taking in, ice cream, slush puppies, whatever cold item you're having, if it's being pressed against the top of your mouth to a significant degree, what it's doing is it's dilating the blood vessels that you have up there. And it's actually not that's causing the problem. It's when you've then swallowed the ice cream or swallowed the slush puppy or whatever it is, and air's coming back in, and that's warm air. So that warm air is then causing those blood vessels to I've mixed that up, to dilate at that point, constrict initially. So they're constricting, they're getting smaller because it's cold, because they're kind of, your body's main reaction when you're in a cold area is to constrict your blood vessels, to mean that your blood is running closer to the center of your body and you're not losing as much heat. So that's what's happening. They're constricting at first, and then when you're getting that warm air, it's dilating the blood vessels again. And if this is happening over and over and over again, these rapid changes near sensitive areas, so in at the top of our mouth we've got a lot of nerves, obviously around our brain we've got a lot of nerves, that can cause the issues, that can cause the pain that's coming through because of these very sensitive nerves. Then? Yeah, it's because by constricting and dilating these blood vessels, we're giving those nerves varying amounts of blood, which gives them varying amounts of oxygen. So it's not allowing them to function as they should. And so it's sending a painful message to our brain to kind of say, stop doing that.
Right, because I was going to say, it's so, because I don't feel the pain in the top of my mouth.
Yeah.
I feel the pain in my brain, but that's because my mouth is saying, because obviously my mouth's got its own opinion, my mouth is saying, hey, brain, sort this out.
Yeah. So it's and also you've got to note that the nerves aren't just at the top of your mouth, but the ones that are being serviced by this blood they kind of go around the front of your brain as well. So it's those ones that are being damaged too, which is why the pain is there. But pain's always there to kind of tell us to stop doing something. You know, if we've got our hand on something hot, the reason it hurts isn't because it's hot. It's because our cells are being damaged and killed. So our brain's going, get away from that. And we're picking up on it.
Nice. This is one that's of interest to me, the paranoia. Every time I go to the hairdressers, I have her check. Why does our hair turn grey, Jack? Why?
Yeah. Well, it is quite awful, actually, when you look into it.
Is it dying?
It's our hair follicles starting to die with this one. And as they start to die, there's fewer pigments in them as well. And so the pigment is what gives it the colour. As well. And so what's left over will normally be a bit of a transparent colour, that kind of like a grey, a silver, or a white.
White I'm fine with. White, because I'm a bottle blonde. Yeah. But a white could make that process easier. I think I'm still all right. Get the odd one. But what about you, Jack? Have you started noticing any?
I don't dare look. I go to the hairdresser. When he does the mirror at the back, I just look somewhere else.
Just close your eyes.
Yeah. I'd be pleased to go grey. It means that I've still got hair. That's
true. That is true. Yeah. The curse, the male curse. That's okay though, because we have lots of other things as women. So you can put up with that one thing.
Yeah.
Last one then. What are pins and needles? I am a sucker for a pin and a needle. Pretty much every single morning in assembly, I think I would get pins and needles in my feet. Never figured out the right way to sit cross-legged.
No.
So please enlighten us, Jack.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to nerves, kind of like what we were talking about with the mouth. You're squeezing, you're putting pressure on the nerves that are in, let's say, your arm or your leg. And so by squeezing them, you're stopping the blood flowing to those nerves as well. So they're not getting a steady supply of oxygen. They're not getting a steady supply of glucose. The two things that cells like nerves need to carry out their function as well. So they start to fall asleep. And that's not actually what the pins and needles feeling is. The pins and needles feeling is them coming back to life.
Yeah.
As well. So that's actually a good thing when you feel that as well. And the scientific term for this is a bit of a traffic jam, because you're kind of giving the oxygen, the blood, the glucose in the blood, the red light to not be able to get through. You've caused a bit of a traffic jam. So all of that blood is now rushing through back to it. And the nerves don't really know how to deal with it. They're starting to get impulse again. They're starting to get the things they need again. But it takes a bit of a while for them to regain normal function. They're actually hyperactive when we're experiencing pins and needles, which is why we're feeling things that we wouldn't normally feel. It's why we feel kind of overstimulated in those areas, because they're in hyperaction.
Okay.
At that point. And then it takes a while for it to regain normal function and get back to normal as well. But
how do you get rid of them?
I suppose that you wait. That's it. Because you can't. there's no way to control. What you'd ideally want to do is slowly release the blood back into those nerves so that it doesn't go into hyperaction. But there's no real way to control that, so you just got to deal with it.
Well, thank you very much, Jack. I feel so much wiser now. So much wiser. So we've done our 8 silly questions, and not silly questions, but our 8. Oh yeah, they were a bit silly.
Yeah, quite silly questions. Silly questions that actually it's quite good that you know now the answer to, because you can impress your friends. You can, actually, I don't know how cool you're going to seem when you go back to talking about pins and needles.
Yeah.
But when you next experience brain freeze or pins and needles, you'll know why as well. And actually, with brain freeze, one thing you can do to alleviate it more quickly is you can press your tongue against the roof of your mouth to kind of protect it from this external air coming in and regulate the temperature to be normal body temperature again more quickly. So there you go. There's something useful that you can take away from these facts as well.
Well, thank you, Jack. And who says this podcast is pointless, hey?
Yeah, exactly. All of our listeners. But apart from them,
all 5 of them.
Yeah.
So, shall we move on to Teacher Lie Pants on Fire? It's your turn. And actually, now that I've sat here and listened to you do all of this prep and research for this episode, I feel a bit bad that you've had to do this as well. Because I literally have done nothing but show up.
I had fun doing these ones because these are all board game themed.
Oh.
In arc of National Board Game Day, which is today.
Well, it won't be today because we record these episodes ahead of time. But
no, it's not even today either. I was just trying to get a rise. So, first headline number 1 is woman uses Operation Game tweezers to save husband's life.
Okay, like it.
Headline 2: ChatGPT powered Furby reveals toys plans to take over the world.
Yep.
And number 3: Monopoly game ends in samurai sword fight with man said to be fighting for his life. So there are the 3. All slightly games, toy-based.
They're all ridiculous. I feel like the Operation one... Can you read the Operation one again? I feel like that's the most sensible, which also means it could be the lie.
Yeah, that is always a red flag when it's a sensible one. Woman uses Operation Game tweezers to save husband's life.
And what, I mean, it could have been like in the context of extra, I don't know.
I can give you I've got a little bit more about each of these stories if you want to know a bit more about the
No, I do not, Jack, because that's just more mind games. I know how you work and I'm not interested, okay? So I just need to think this through. So we've got Operation Tweezers, we've got a Furby that's taking over the world, which seems like the most ridiculous of them, and then the sword fight from Monopoly, which I think is perfectly plausible.
Yeah.
Furby taking over the world. If that is true, I should just quit. But it will be true. I'm gonna say the Furby is the lie.
It's true. It is absolutely true. Yeah. It's the headline at the moment on Sky News' Wacky News, which is my source for most of these. But yeah, ChatGPT powered Furby reveals toys plans to take over the world. I'd imagine, like we had on a previous episode, it was a jail broken version of ChatGPT that Alex told us about that has the sort of evil intentions, or you can program in the evil intentions into the things like this Furby.
Oh, I mean, it's great. It's great. Well done. You were very good at this. I'm very bad at this. I don't like being bad at things. I think we should axe this feature immediately.
Do you want to give it a second guess? Yeah. You've got the Operation game where the woman saves her husband's life, or the Monopoly game that ended in a samurai sword fight. You think that's the lie?
Oh, I can tell from how happy you are that it's true.
No.
No, I think I think that's the lie.
Yeah, that is true. That one is true. The Operation game, you're right initially. Your instincts were right. The most boring one is always the one that's made up.
I know, but then sometimes you just don't do it that way.
I think I put more effort into this than any other element of the podcast in
I was
thinking
going
of
to say
these and
any other
trying to
element of your working week.
of my whole life. Yeah.
This is very well done, Jack. And like credit where credit's due. Yeah, well done. Fantastic. Good job. Really impressed. Really
my
impressive.
my headphones are going to fly off in a minute because my head's getting so big from all
Yeah,
of these
I know.
compliments.
I know. Now, we're going to argue in a minute now, aren't we? Because I've said to Jack separately, let's scrap MVP of the week, mainly because I can never think of one. And the idea is that every week someone will have inspired us in some way. And frankly, everyone around me is dull. No one is inspiring. Nothing seems to be positive in the world. So I'm not getting flooded with positive news stories. And then when I ask ChatGPT, it just keeps telling me about Marcus Rashford, and I'm like, I used him week 1.
Yeah, there's only so many times you can keep asking ChatGPT. I was going to say keep asking Marcus Rashford, but yeah, he just gives you the same answers again and again. I think
Jack,
we got to keep it. It's the name of the podcast.
I know,
we can't
but
go.
mine are just rubbish. I don't even have one.
What about we change the way we do it? So instead of it being a person or having to be a person, it could be an object, a thing. It could just be something that we'd recommend people go to watch or see. So like
Okay.
a particular sitcom, or just something almost
Okay,
more
like
like
a recommendation.
like a show and tell, if you want to use a school analogy.
Okay.
Where we're going, these are things that we think you should check out. And
Do
speaking
you
of
want?
mine,
Yeah,
because I've
go
got
on.
one, I've done
Go
my
on.
job.
You do it, and I'll frantically just I'll just start thinking my favorite TV shows.
Mine is a guy called Geo Wizard, and Geo is in geography, and then Wizard, and he is a man. He has a YouTube channel, but his sole purpose in life is to cross countries only walking in a straight line. And so he's done Wales, he's done Scotland, he's done Norway, I think, and he just goes to these countries and goes, right, I've got a little GPS and I've drawn a line in the best possible route from east to west or west to east of this country, and I'm going to follow that line. I'm not going to deviate from it. It will take me days. I'll just camp on the line. And so what he ends up doing is like walking through lakes, just climbing through, I wouldn't recommend this, but climbing over people's property, just to continue in this straight line.
Oh God, don't do it in America. Whatever you do, you'll be shot.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's then the danger. And actually, you see a lot of that in his videos. So he films the whole thing, and it's walking through farmers' fields who are not the most, not ever the happiest of people.
Geo Wizard.
Geo Wizard, and it's strangely addictive to watch him just do it because he gets in all sorts of gripes. He's got this like weird backing track that he's made himself, that just goes alongside of it, and it's a nice escape from the real world because he's really focusing on this meaningless challenge in the grand scheme of things, but he's putting all of his energy and all of his effort into it, and it's quite funny to watch, really.
That's a good one. And also I took the time whilst you were explaining about him to come up with something/someone, but I'm also really annoyed at them. So it's kind of an MVP, but also sort yourself out.
Yeah.
Sort yourself out. So my MVP is someone called Patrick Rothfuss. Do you know who this is?
No.
He's an author of a series, and they are absolutely wonderful, wonderful, wonderful books. However, he wrote 2 of them, and then he just 12 years ago thought, nah.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't brought out the 3rd one. So the series, the first book is called The Name of the Wind, and the second one is called The Wise Man's Fear. And when I say I think they are the best books that have ever been written, maybe except for Harry Potter, but like adult themes, but fantasy, but so crafted beautifully to the point where they are just wonderful, wonderful stories.
Has he announced when he's bringing out more of these, or is he just keeping everybody on their toes for a sudden surprise 3rd one?
No, I mean, the 3rd one's called Doors of Stone. About every 3 months I decide to Google when is Doors of Stone being released, and at one point it was going to be released in 2019. Obviously that hasn't happened. It's actually got a review because so many people are angry waiting for it. So it's got like 1 star because people are just like, why is this book not out? It's like taking sort of a George R.R. Martin approach to an extreme.
Yeah.
But he is my MVP because I remember reading them and I hadn't really thought I could feel the way that this is so nerdy. The way that I felt reading Harry Potter growing up was just magical. And like I was never into reading until I read them, and to kind of be taken to this other place and experience this world, it was the best escape for me when I had quite a difficult time in my teens, and it was just the best escape. And so to feel that way again as an adult, I thought only kids could love a story that much, and so it was really nice to re-love a story as an adult. But yeah, the guy just needs to get on with number 3. But I highly recommend it, Jack. They're fantastic. They're big books, but they are wonderful. The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear, and Patrick Rothfuss, MVP of the week, if we must continue.
Yeah, see, aren't you glad we continued it after that? That was a lovely MVP of the week.
Oh, I know. Right, we've got Classroom Confessional.
We do. So this one, again, if you have any classroom confessionals, you've got any questions that you think might fit well, please do send them in to podcast@minervavirtual.com. Equally, kind of a good time to shout out if you've got any feedback on any podcast episodes, any that you particularly like that you'd like to see a second part to, please do let us know. So this one is, I've joined a new school recently and I'm finding it quite difficult to fit in and make friends. Do either of you have any tips on how I can make friends?
I think everyone feels vulnerable and shy, and everyone always wants, if somebody reaches out to them, it's very, very rare for that to be rejected. I know that takes a huge amount of confidence, but if you could try and find like a common interest with or maybe join a club so that there's something there that you can have this common interest with someone about, that can be a good starting point for speaking to somebody, even if that common interest is like you've just had a terrible lesson with the geography teacher and they absolutely lost their mind, and at the end of the lesson you can be like, she absolutely lost her mind.
Yeah.
It's about finding that sense of commonality and sort of solidarity together, which I think is really important as like a first step. And you'll often find, even if you go somewhere and you think everyone's already in their groups, they're not. Half of the people in their groups are unhappy with their friendships anyway, and there's always somebody who's feeling shy and vulnerable just like you.
Yeah, I think that nails it really, and kindness is key. No one's going to reject someone who's being nice. It takes a very horrible person to reject someone who's being nice to them. So if they did do that, you probably wouldn't want to be friends with them anyway. But if you go into them and are just friendly, nice, warm, approachable, asking them a lot of questions about themselves, then they're going to kind of be warm and gentle and approachable back to you as well. A good way to think about it is to kind of road test what you're planning on saying to someone if you're approaching someone on yourself, and think, oh, if someone said that to me, how would I react to that? And actually, if it's a sort of something that you're looking for someone else to do, chances are you doing it to someone else, they'd want to be your, they'd respond positively to it as well. Joining clubs as well, like Kate said, is a great way to do it. So a lot of my friends growing up were through football, because every week we'd meet, there'd be 15 of us all doing the same thing, all trying to aim towards the same goal. Just by chance, literally. Eventually you have to become friends because you hang out with each other enough. It's like, doing a podcast with someone. Eventually, if you're meeting with them every week, you've just got to be friends with them, because otherwise you're not going to get away from it.
And one day we will become friends, Jack.
Yeah.
One day it might happen.
If I'm lucky, my kindness will one day be reciprocated.
Never. Well, thank you so much for listening, everyone. We've reached the end of another episode. I'm excited to announce next week we're going to be doing an episode with an incredible guest, Frank, and he is a coach on neurodiversity. So make sure that you tune in for that. It should be a really interesting conversation. Topics, a topic to kind of discuss, great strategies, but also just a nice informal chat to maybe make a topic that might seem scary feel a little bit less scary. That's all from us. So thanks for listening.